This week on the podcast, Sean and I are going to do some real world examples of Roth conversions. I mean, it's all the rage. Everybody's been talking about it for a couple of years now, right, Sean? So might as well just share some examples and what that looks like so people can kind of maybe get a better understanding, because there still does seem to be a lot of kind of like confusion around it. Hey, I hear it's the thing to do. Let me do it. But what is it and what does it look like? So let's break it down a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I hear every day almost in our office. And it actually hit me last week a little bit, or 2 weeks ago. I had back-to-back meetings with families that we've worked with for a long time. And both of them, one of the main talking points was, well, I had just recently heard that I should do Roth conversions in my plan. And so let's do big Roth conversions.
Oh, big Roth conversions. Okay. Yeah.
And I'm like, well, why?
Right.
Like,
because I want to get it all tax efficient. There's the talking points, right? Hey, I don't want to have to, they're going to raise taxes. We owe $36 trillion. I want to pay the taxes now at a lower tax rate.
Yeah, totally. The government's going to change taxes in 2026. And so I've got right now and I've got next year, and we need to do it. I'm like, all right.
And that's what we hear. And it makes total sense, right? That's actually factual stuff. But the big thing is probably what caught your concern, right? Because you could bump yourself a tax bracket, all sorts of stuff, right?
Well, there's issues. So, what we look at, and I'm for Roth conversions. I like the idea of Roth conversions. I'm not against them, but they have to be in the right situation. Like, I don't want somebody to come to me and be like, "Hey, Sean, I just rolled over my IRA. I converted $1 million into Roth, and I'm paying, federal taxes, state taxes, Medicare surplus tax, and I've only got half of it. But it was a good idea because I was told that I should convert it all." My first question is like, okay, well, one, why? Why would you convert over that amount of money? And two, how did it overall affect your plan positively or negatively in the long term?
Sure.
Mark, my first example is I was working with a family. We did a review with them, and they came in, and this couple, and I'm just pulling up some data as we're talking, so I have all the facts for you. This couple right now, they've got around 3.5 million with us, and the majority of that is in retirement accounts. And you're thinking, Sean, wow, why would they want to do Roth conversions if they've saved that amount of money for retirement?
Yeah. Well,
and the reality of it is maybe they don't. And they had been told that we should go ahead and we should convert a big chunk of our assets.
Right.
And
tax rates now are low, historically low, all that stuff. Let's do it now.
And I said, well, when we look at doing Roth conversions, there's a number of ways that we can do it. We can say, hey, we want to convert over a set dollar amount.
Okay.
$30,000. And this couple, they're 68 years old, both of them are. And I said, we can just do a set dollar amount. I don't know if that's going to affect you. I don't know how it's going to affect you, but we could just say $30,000.
Okay.
Or we could go up to, they had a portion of their income in the 22% bracket. So this family, they were pulling out $75,000 a year from their IRAs, which is a good amount. They had another $60,000 a year roughly in Social Security benefits. So their gross income is about 130 grand. So they're in the 22% bracket. They've got some money in the 22% bracket. And I said, well, you could go all the way up. You could fill up the 22% bracket, which is going to allow you to convert over 120 grand.
Okay. And people don't often understand the steps, right? So, by taking it to just the max of that, you could take it to that new number of 120 versus if they went higher, then they would be kicking themselves into a new bracket.
Now, their current taxes without doing the conversion, Fed taxes were about $12,000 a year. It's like 11.7. If they do the Roth conversion, it's going to, at those limits, add 22% in Fed, right?
Okay.
So 100 grand, for example, was going to add $22,000 in taxes to their plan, which is like, whew, that's a chunk. But so we looked at that and we said, this is how much you could convert. However, there are things to consider if you do convert that amount. So it's going to kick you into a new Medicare premium level, which means that you and your wife are going to pay a Medicare premium surplus premium of $70 a month each. So $840 a year of additional Medicare premiums for each of you is, $1,680 of extra outflow per year. So that's one thing to remember, is that if you convert over the IRMAA limits, you've got to pay additional Medicare premiums.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of it. Yeah, you have to pay taxes, but you're also going to potentially increase your outflow of expense.
Yep.
In years that you convert.
Yeah, and most people don't even realize about the IRMAA tax. That's one of those extra little sneaky ones. And again, it's all structured around your income limit. So doing your conversions could affect that one too. So little hidden thing.
And so when we look at it, I said, well, let's take a look at what this does to you long term from a tax perspective. We know that if you go ahead and you convert, and they wanted to look at conversions for 2 years. So this year and next year, right? 2024, 2025. And we settled on $100,000 of conversion. Now, we settled on $100,000 of conversion because we wanted to make sure that there was a little bit of a buffer before they get kicked up into the next bracket, the 24% bracket.
Right.
So 2 years of conversions, paying the extra Fed taxes. The interesting thing here, because they are 68, and we theoretically have a couple of years worth of conversions that we could still do because they don't have to take out their RMD until 73. We just looked at the next 2 years, because also at age 70, which is probably a longer discussion down the road, we're looking at qualified charitable distributions to reduce their required minimum distribution. Which
you can still do at 70 and a half, even though RMD age is older, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the cool thing about this is that what we were able to do in this particular scenario was that by converting over $100,000 a year for 2 years, their cumulative tax savings, if they live to age 90, was over $64,000. So they actually saved over $64,799 in taxes if they lived to age 90, and tax law reverted or changed in 2026 to where it's supposed to go. So there are some assumptions here.
Sure, of course.
But that's one positive in their plan. The second positive is that in their plan at age 90, by doing a Roth conversion, they had $392,000 more assets to pass on to their beneficiaries because they had done the Roth conversions early on in retirement.
Oh, okay.
Now that money grew tax-free for their beneficiaries.
Yeah.
So that's the second benefit. At age 90, they had $392,000 more net worth that could be passed on. So with this, $64,000 plus of tax savings, $392,000 of additional net worth was created, but they had to be willing to do two things. They had to be willing to pay taxes on the year they convert the dollars and pay 2 years worth of increased Medicare premiums at $1,840 or $1,680 total per year.
Yeah.
So in this particular instance, it worked out pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. Sounds like it. And of course, looking at those illustrations, people can kind of see some of that stuff that kind of helps out. And by the way, on that IRMAA, that $1,600 that you're talking about, Sean, that's typically a 2-year look back too, right? So they look at your income from 2 years ago. So yet another point to the Roth conversion conversation that people have been having lately. So that was the first one. So what about the second one?
So the second one, we had the discussion a little bit later, and this is one of our clients that they were business owners. They sold a business. Their liquid assets are around $8.6 million, but only about 20% of that is IRA money.
Okay.
And so, they're 69 years old. We looked at the same thing. We looked at doing a Roth conversion for them. And with that Roth conversion, we actually settled on, because their income levels are much higher. Their income levels currently year to date are around $250,000 a year. So we didn't have as much space to do a Roth conversion.
Okay.
But we looked at doing around $30,000 a year, because that kept them under the next IRMAA limit.
Gotcha.
So they're already paying $70 a month extra. We didn't want them to pay $148 a month extra per person, because then it starts to ratchet up, especially if we're only able to get like a $30,000 Roth conversion done. But in their situation, they were already pulling out around $60,000 a year in IRA money. And that's going to be sufficient to cover their required minimum distributions down the road. So by doing a Roth conversion, the first thing that I looked at was, well, from a savings perspective, what would that do to your tax rates? Mm-hmm. And honestly, what that did is that actually added $33,000 in taxes by doing the Roth conversion. There really wasn't a ton of tax savings for them. Even if we did Roth conversions for 5 years or whatever, it really only it actually hurt their plan by doing the conversions. They weren't able to save near as much. But here was the big thing for me when it came down to their present value of their plan, is that their plan was actually $128,000 worse than what it would have been, because they did the Roth conversions for 2 years, and there was really the catch-up point paying the extra taxes that they had to pay. Mm-hmm. They lost that money, the opportunity for growth and accumulation. So now they're worse off by doing a Roth conversion. So when we start to look at, all right, should we do a Roth conversion? Should we not? Every situation is going to be different. And if you're looking at doing a Roth conversion just because it sounds good, well, let's go out and look at, should we actually really do that? And in one case, yeah, like it made a ton of sense.
Yeah.
In the other case, it was worse on the plan.
So, Sean, let me ask a couple questions. Is there an age specificness that changes things with Roth conversions? Does that play a factor into should or should not? And obviously there's income limits, right? There's some things there. So what are some things that might, if people are hearing this as all the buzz, I need to get it done, we've only got a year and a half or a year and a month left or whatever, what's some things to think about that it may or may not be a good idea for you? Well,
and I would think about kind of the duration of which you can do Roth conversions.
Okay.
Right. So at 73 or 70, wherever your required minimum distribution age falls, mm-hmm. Does it make sense for me to do a Roth conversion up until that point? Maybe, maybe not. Am I charitably inclined? In Utah, there's a lot of charitably inclined people. Across the United States, there are. So at 70 and a half, do we look at incorporating a QCD to cover some of the required minimum distributions, which a QCD is a qualified charitable distribution, which is a top line distribution to a charity. So I can take money after 70 and a half from my IRA, direct it to a charity, and have it go straight across, and it's included as part of my required minimum distribution. Now, the thing to remember there, if you're able to do a top line straight across donation, mm-hmm. you save the sanctity of your standard deduction.
Right.
So if I were to donate without doing a QCD, it doesn't really matter. I don't get a deduction there. But if I use a QCD, now I still maintain my full standard deduction and exemption. Mm-hmm. So we want to look at longevity. We want to look at, are we charitably inclined? Are we going to do a Roth conversion after RMD age? Because that's going to affect us. It may make sense mathematically. It may not. But I like the sooner the better. or the younger that you are,
Okay.
in a lot of cases, the better, because you just have more time to convert more dollars at a lesser tax burden.
So it's not necessarily a no if you're older. It's just, hey, let's run, like anything financially, let's run the math and see what makes the most sense. Because with these two examples, clearly one made sense, one did not.
And they were similar in age.
Yeah.
Asset levels were a little bit different, but one was more heavily weighted IRA, one was less weighted IRA. Mm-hmm. And so based on their individual distributions, based on what they wanted their lifestyles to look like, one person, the Roth conversion made sense. One person, it didn't.
So I guess if the question is a Roth conversion right for me? Depends, like most financial answers, right? I think I've heard that more times than not, it has been beneficial for a lot of reasons, but you want to, like anything, you want to double check to make sure that it is the correct situation for you.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, hopefully that helped out a little bit with some examples. It's kind of nice to see it in black and white, or in this case, in color graphs or whatever. But it's important to kind of see some things sometimes to understand it, because it is complicated. Sean, all the time, it's like growing the money is one thing. It's a lot easier to build the wealth than we realize. And then when you start talking about the preservation and distribution of it, AKA this thing known as retirement, it gets a lot more complicated, right?
Oh, yeah.
So there's a lot of little moving, parts and things that happen in there. So if you need some help, as always, don't forget to check the show notes and for the details for links to get in touch with the team. We've got there's a way to schedule some time, book some time right on the calendar with Sean. You can, check out the copy of their book. I mean, just tons of good stuff in there. So check the show notes descriptions each week. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on Apple or Spotify or YouTube. Anything else before we go this week, bud?
No, I mean, you look at, don't read into the media. Don't read into the myths and misconceptions. Build your plan off of facts, data, and logic.
And who better to help you with that than the team at Retirement Elevated Group? So give them a call, get on the calendar, check the show notes. We'll see you next time here on the podcast. Thanks for hanging out with us, buddy. Always appreciate your time.
Thanks, man. See ya.
We'll see you next time.
This video has been prepared for educational and marketing purposes only. The information in this video is general in nature, does not constitute personalized investment advice, and does not provide a complete analysis of the subjects discussed. All investments involve risk, and different types of investments involve varying degrees of risk. There can be no assurance that any specific investment strategy will be profitable or suitable to you. Additionally, although information presented in this video is believed to be factual and up to date, we do not guarantee its accuracy. You should consult an attorney or tax professional regarding your specific legal or tax situation, and should consult a professional advisor before implementing any of the strategies mentioned in this video. Investment advisory services are offered through Elevated Capital Advisors LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor affiliated with Elevated Retirement Group LLC. Registration as an investment advisor does not constitute an endorsement of Elevated Capital Advisors LLC by securities regulators, nor does it indicate that the firm has attained a particular level of skill or ability. Insurance advice and products may be offered by a third-party insurance producer, which may be affiliated with Elevated Retirement Group LLC and Elevated Capital Advisors LLC. Mark Killian and Third Wheel Media LLC receive compensation for their assistance in preparing and hosting this video.